Hello dear creatives, welcome to Classy by Mavi. In this channel, we do upload pattern drafting and sewing tutorials. If that's what you would like, hang around as we draft a new pattern in this video. In this video, we'll be learning how to draft a basic trouser pattern. You see, there are times you make your trousers and you see that they don't come out well, they don't fit well. The problem most likely must have come from how the pattern of the trouser was drafted. Okay, for this pattern I want to teach in this video, if you use this method, your trouser will always come out beautifully well. Okay, you can take a look at some of the trouser projects I've done using this particular pattern. Note that this is a basic trouser, and once you know how to draft this basic trouser, you'll be able to draft any other trouser with little effort, right? So I'll be teaching how to draft a basic trouser on the channel. I'll be using this basic trouser a lot. If you haven't subscribed to Classy by Mavi yet, kindly hit on the subscription button, turn on notification, so whenever we upload new videos, you get notified, right? So having said all of this, let's just go straight to our drafting. To draft your basic trouser pattern, you need very few measurements. Follow me as I mention the measurements. First, you will need your hip circumference measurements. You will need your waist circumference, hip circumference, waist circumference. For a basic trouser, the waist circumference is your lower waist. That is the point around your navel. Okay, so you measure around your navel area to get this measurement. My waist circumference is 30, so you just measure around that area. Then you need your hip rise. In other words, your waist to hip measurements. So immediately you have measured around your waist circumference, your navel area, you from that navel area and measure down to your hip to get this measurements, the hip rise measurements, right? For me, the hip rise is 8. And then you will need your full length. Then we also have derived measurements. Okay, we have derived measurements. That is, those measurements don't necessarily need to be measured on your body, but rather you derive them. We have your front crotch extension, your front crotch extension, and your back crotch extension. Then your crotch depth, measurements, right? Your crotch depth measurements. Okay, so these are the measurements you'll be needing. There's another measurement you also derive. As we are teaching, we'll get to where we'll be using that measurement. However, I also want to note it down here. That is your knee placement. I call it the knee placement. Okay, so I haven't gotten all of that. I'll be giving you the formulas first before we proceed. Okay, so for your front crotch extension, the formula is your hip circumference divided by 20. For the back crotch extension, your hip circumference divided by 10. For your crotch depth, your hip circumference divided by 4. Then for the knee placement, as we are drafting, I'll show you how to get that. I hope you got the measurements correctly. So having talked about the measurements, let's go straight to the drafting. So we'll be drafting the front and back patterns separately. There is a way I normally do it. I normally draft all in one, make a master pattern, then trace out. But I don't want this video to be complicated, or I don't want anything to be complicated here, because I still want beginners to watch this video and understand, okay? So for that reason, I am separating front and back patterns. So let's start with the front. To draft your front pattern, you first of all use your crotch depth measurements. As you can see, the formula for crotch depth is hip circumference divided by 4. My hip circumference is 42. Dividing 42 by 10 gives me 10.5. So I'll be using that 10.5 to form a square. Look at what I mean. I will simply mark 10.5 here and also come here and mark 10.5. Then I go this way and mark 10.5. So it's like I'm trying to form a square. Definitely you should know what a square is. 4 equal corners, all with the measurement 10.5. Okay, so I have marked 10.5 in 4 corners, and I will be linking them with a straight line to give me the square. Okay, when you are drafting yours, please use a pencil so that even when you have errors, you can correct your errors. Okay, and also the pencil gives more accuracy as the line drawn by the pencil is actually thinner. However, I'm using a marker pen so that you can see what I'm doing very clearly. Okay, so we have gotten our measurements correctly. The next thing we want to do, we will insert our hip rise. My hip rise is 8, but note that you can actually go up from your crotch depth. Okay, this is our crotch line now. You can go up from your crotch by 2 inches to get your hip rise. Okay, for me, I have already measured my hip rise, so I will just insert it. It is 8 inches. So for those of us who are into ready to wear, you just, when you get the crotch depth of what you are working with, you just go up from the crotch depth by 2 inches to get your hip rise. Okay, if you are into bespoke, I will recommend you always take your measurements. All the parts you need to measure, you measure them. So having gotten to this point, the next thing we want to do, we want to insert our front crotch extension. Hip circumference divided by 20. Hip circumference divided by 20. So 42 divided by 20 will give us about 218. Okay, 218, somewhere around 2 inches, like this. Okay, so having marked it on that line, we are extending the crotch line outwards. That is the reason why it is called the crotch extension, the front crotch extension. Okay, we have extended the front crotch line outwards. Next, we'll come to our waist. Mind you, this edge is serving as our waistline, right? Let me just impute the black marker pen. Okay, so that we'll have the line there also. Can you see? So this is our waistline. Okay, the edge is our waistline. Now we want to insert our waist circumference measurement. Waist circumference is 30. 30 divided by 4 is 7.5, right? So we'll be inserting that measurement from this line. You mark 7.5 backwards from this line. Okay, 7.5 brings us here. However, we'll be adding 1 inch dart intake. So you are marking 8.5. Okay, now that I've marked 8.5, I'll be using my hip curve to link it to this hip point, like this. Can you see? So we are progressing. This just comes like this naturally. Okay, so having done this, the next thing we want to do, I want to finish with this upper part before we go down, right? So the next thing we want to do on this upper part is to impute our darts. So for the darts, you will divide from this point to this point into 2. Okay, so you just place your tape and fold it over to get your midpoint. We are here. Okay, after that you mark half an inch on each side. Can you see? Now I have marked. The next thing I want to do, I want to determine the length of my dart leg. Okay, so we are working with a 5.5 dart leg. Okay, 5.5 for the front. Take note. Then you know this is our dart point, our midpoint. So how did we get to the midpoint? Let's check. Okay, this is 4 1/4. So you come here and still mark, and still, let me take it again. Yes, it is 4 1/4. You come this way and also mark 4 1/4. So it will be here, right? This is how to get a straight line. From this point, you now link straight like this. Okay, we would have ruled this line before in taking half an inch so that you understand better, right? So now that we have inserted, you can see we marked on this side, on the right side of the line, we marked half an inch. On the left side, we also marked half an inch. Now we'll bring it down like this and like this. Okay, so I haven't gotten to this point. The next thing we want to do, we'll do our waist shaping. You will come to this line and go down by 1 inch. Trace it back to the first dart leg like this. So we have shaped our waist, and then next we want to link our crotch extension to our center front line. To do that, you will mark from this part outwards by 1 inch. Okay, from this angle you mark 1 inch outwards like this. So your curve passes through this 1 inch point from here to here. Okay, like this. Can you see our beautiful front trouser? So the next thing we want to do, we want to mark the full length of this trouser, the full length. Okay, so the full length of this trouser is 44 inches. So that's what I want to mark now. As you can see, I have added pattern paper to the length of my original pattern paper. I added here, you might not see it well. Can you see? So I added from the back using my masking tape. I've marked 44 inches and I want a straight line there, so I will still come this way and mark again. So now that I have marked 44 inches, 44 is our full length. So I have imputed a line there. Okay, so the next thing I want to do, I will come up. We are making a basic trouser, right? So there won't be actually a need for us to try to equalize some points here. So this is enough. We can just go with this. But if you want to do your trouser alteration, there is more you will do here, especially if you want to sew a pencil trouser. Okay, so that by the time you are finishing the arm, there will not be any issue. For this tutorial, we are doing a basic trouser pattern, so we are okay with this line. Okay, so I haven't gotten to this point. The next thing we want to do our knee placement now. You remember I said I'll talk about the knee placement in the drafting process. So we have gotten to that point where we will be needing our knee placement. So to get your knee placement, you measure from the crotch line to the full length. Crotch line to full length. Pardon me, this line doesn't look straight. Let me take it again. That full length line doesn't look straight, so okay, that is correct. And for this, okay, I said it. The line wasn't straight actually. Please always confirm your lines so that you do a perfect job at all times. Okay, so having corrected that line, we are continuing with our pattern drafting. So from the crotch line, you get to your full length, and then you trace the midpoints like this. You fold it over. So we have our midpoints here. Now you will insert a straight line, but before you get a straight line, you have to measure what you have here. Okay, the 16.5. So you will insert a line here. Well, for you not to get confused, that's the reason why I want to insert a line here first. Okay, or let's make it a dotted line, because this is not a permanent line. Okay, so we have our dotted line here. Okay, now once you divide this crotch to hem into two, you have to go up by 2 inches to get your knee placement. Okay, so we will be marking 2 inches upwards from this dotted line, 2 inches upward from the dotted line. To get our knee placement. Okay, so this is where we will now insert our knee circumference measurements. Pardon me, I did not mention the knee circumference. You need your knee circumference to draft your basic trouser. Please, you need your knee circumference. What you don't need here is your ankle circumference. Okay, sometimes I see people measuring thigh and all of that. You don't need all of that. Okay, or measuring crotch. You don't need all of that if you use this pattern. So if you haven't tried this pattern before, or if you haven't seen it before, watch till the end, learn exactly what I'm teaching here, and then practice it. Try it out. Try using this pattern on your next project. Try using this pattern on your next project. You see how beautiful it will come out. Okay, so having gotten to this point, the next thing we want to do, we want to insert our knee circumference measurement. Okay, as you already know, our knee circumference must be measured, but when you want to measure your knee, please tilt your knee forward before you measure around. Okay, and try to pass the tape measure through the knee to know if you can walk freely on it. So my knee circumference is 17 inches. Now, before you impute that measurement here, you will come to this crotch line, including the extension, the entire crotch line. Okay, you will measure and try to get the midpoint. Can you notice something? Can you notice that the midpoints of the crotch line, including the extension, the entire crotch line, is exactly where we place our darts? Just watch. Can you see the accuracy? So this is the midpoint of our trouser pattern. This is where you form your crease line. Okay, in case you want to put gator, I think the popular name is gator. If you want to put gators in your trousers, you must have your midpoint right, and this is where we bring us the gators nicely. Okay, so having gotten to this point, we want to also mark this point here. How can we get it very straight? This is what you do. You just come here and measure. Okay, so this is 6 1/4, and this is it. So you mark. I brought down this measurement here to get accurately, and then I'll also bring it down to our hemline. 6 1/4. I will mark. Now I will insert a line all across. So I am here inserting our crease line, our trouser crease line. Okay. Can you see? We are almost there. So having gotten to this point, we will now divide our knee circumference into 2. 17 divided by 2 gives 8.5. So we will insert 8.5 here. However, we'll be dividing that 8.5 into 2, which means 4 1/4 this way, 4 1/4 this way. Can you see? 4 1/4 here, 4 1/4 here. So having gotten there, we will link it. Link this part to the crotch extension, and then this part to the hip area, like this. Can you see? Now we'll also take this exact measurement down, because this is not a pencil trouser. It is also not a palazzo trouser, okay? It is a basic trouser. For a basic trouser, your hem carries the same measurement with your knee, okay? So we'll be measuring 4 1/4 on one side and 4 1/4 on the other side, okay? So we are coming down straight. Very straight. So our front trouser pattern is complete. Can you see? Our front trouser pattern is complete. We'll be needing this pattern to draft the back, so I'll be cutting it out now. Then we place it on another pattern paper so we can draft the back. So follow me as I cut out the pattern. I want to say something about this part before I move. Now, if you do not have a protruding stomach and your stomach is not so flat, you can just work with this. But if your stomach is very flat, you come in from here by 1/2 inch and link like this, okay? So that you get a perfectly fitted trouser. But now, if you have a protruding stomach and you need excess fabric to cover that protruding area, you come out by 1/2 inch before you link, okay? I hope that little demonstration is gotten. For me, I'm on the normal side, so to say, so I'll just work with this. So our front trouser is complete. You can decide to close your darts and decide to work with your darts. So next we'll be drafting the back. With me here is another pattern paper. I've also attached excess here, so it becomes as long as what I want, okay? Now to draft your back, you just place this your front on another pattern paper. As you are placing it, ensure that you have excess of at least up to 2 inches on the upper part and on the side, okay? And on the side, then on the center part too, have at least some excess, okay? Now I'll mask it to stay in place so I can start the drafting process. Welcome back once again. So now before we start drafting our back, okay, I will redraw some lines. Can you see? So we had a straight line here, if you can remember, for the front. Then we sloped it down by 1 inch. So we'll just make the line straight once again, okay, because we're about to draft the back. Then let's just start. To make it very simple, the first thing we'll be doing is for us to measure 2 inches backwards from this hip and the crotch line. So we have extended the hip and the crotch backwards. So for the back, take note, I am doing the down part first before we'll be coming to the upper part. Now on the knee line, you come back by half an inch. And this should happen on both sides. Have you seen? You will link back. You can decide to use your hip cuff for this. You can just do what I just did and blend it out. Then on this crotch line too, you go out by half an inch. Now you come down to your hem line and still come out by half an inch. And then link. You do the same thing also on this side. Next will be our back crotch extension. We need to extend the back crotch before we move ahead with this part, okay? So for the back crotch extension, before we will mark the back crotch extension, now listen very carefully. Listen very carefully. For the back crotch extension, before you impute the measurement of the back crotch extension, you will have to mark 1 inch back from this line. You know our original line that we formed earlier, okay, while we were drafting this original line that we use the crotch depth divided by 4 to get our square here, 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 and here, okay? So this square line, not the extended crotch line, right? This before the extension, the point before the extension, that's where we'll be marking. That's the place we'll be marking 1 inch backwards from, okay? So I have imputed that 1 inch point. So from this original center back line point on the crotch depth, I marked 1 inch backward first. Now the back crotch extension is 4 1/4. So from this point now, I will now place my 4 1/4 and mark out. So our back crotch extension extends to these points, okay? This is the point. We'll now link this our knee from this our knee to like this, okay? I hope that is gotten. So for our back, we'll be starting a new line. We'll not be using this center front line for the back. We'll create a new line that will serve as our center back line, okay, from this point. Now if you don't have a tracing wheel, at this point you can remove this. Before you remove it, let's take this upwards. I want to remove it because I don't want anything complicated. So we are extending, yes. So this is our point we'll be working from, right? This line has been extended to its original position, okay? Now let's remove this and trace this. As you are removing it, place your hand under this point because you will need this point and mark, okay? This is the point here. Mark it like this. So from this particular point, you'll be going inwards by 2.5. You mark 2.5 and you link it to this point. You know how we got to this point already? From the straight line here, we marked 1 inch backwards to get this line, okay? This straight line, 1 inch backwards to get it. Can you see? So this is it. Okay, so now that we have moved 2.5 backwards, we'll be moving upwards by 1.5. Upwards 1.5. From this point, you go up by 1 inch to link nicely. Just go up by 1 inch, so your link is passing through here, and just into our new line at the back. Let me use my free hand. I'm not getting the curve right. Can you see? Can you see our back crotch now? Okay. So now that we have our new center back line, all our measurements will be coming from this center back line. Okay, so we are here inserting our waist circumference divided by 4, which is 7.5 plus 1 inch for that, 8.5. Okay, so it brings us here. This is the point that we'll now be linking from to this point. So we are linking these 2 points now to get the back waistline. Okay, so for the back, we are not working with this straight line as our waistline. This slanted line is now our waistline for the back. Okay, so having gotten to this point, we will simply use our hip curve to link it to the hip area, like this. Can you see? So next, we want to create our darts. We'll be creating the dart on the slanted line also. So trying to get the midpoint. Here is the midpoint. Haven't gotten the midpoint, we'll go down by 6.5. For the front, remember, it was 5.5. For the back, 6.5. This is just basic. You might not even work with the darts, okay? Because for me particularly, I do not like darts on my pattern. So we have 4 1/4 and also 4 1/4 here, okay? You have to measure from here to here, come down and insert same measurements so that you maintain this slanted shape, okay? Then you come here, mark 1/2 inch on each side and link back. So our pattern is complete. You can now remove the front pattern. Can you see our back pattern? Look at the hem. We'll just link it nicely like this. The part that was sellotaped. So our pattern is complete also for the back, and we'll cut out. Can you see? So as you can see here, both patterns are complete. Here we have our back And here we have our front pattern. Can you see? Can you spot the difference? Can you see? So on some parts the back is bigger. This is to accommodate the butt. Okay, like this back. This is the center back area to accommodate the butt. But for the sides, they must be equal. The side back and the side front. Can you see? They must be equal, both on the arm and on the waist area. Okay, so if you have enjoyed watching the video, kindly give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel to continue enjoy watching educative videos like this. I'll see you in our next one.